Hello, people. Welcome to the But What It Really Means Is show. Thank you so much for joining me with this very first episode. And tonight it's Wednesday, January the 6th. I'll be honest, I had a completely different plan for this show because I was so excited to share the news about the Georgia Senate races. And that's really what I wanted to talk about. But sadly, events have taken control of the news headlines as per usual. And so I will be speaking about that. But before I do, I want to just thank you for sharing this first inaugural episode with me and to tell you a little bit about what the plan is. But what it really means is my brainchild. It's an opportunity for me to put words to the things in our politics, in our lives, in our society that are not said, that are assumed. The dog whistles, the presumptions, the assumptions, the underlying premises, all of the things that you kind of know in the back of your mind, but maybe you haven't put words to yourself. It's designed to help you have a better understanding of what is going on and what it means to you and your family. Also, I'll be taking your questions and engaging with the audience about things that are going on in your mind. And some of those may or may not be political. But that's what this show is going to be about. But what it really means is. And I'm so grateful to have you with me. So let's start with what happened today. For those of you who are caught under a rock, maybe you didn't see all the social media and all the news about the storming of the Capitol by Proud Boys and other right-wing extremist groups that gathered there expressly for that purpose and somehow managed to infiltrate the Capitol building of the United States of America, to plant themselves in the offices of members of Congress, and were cordially escorted out by Capitol Police when they felt like they had exorcised their demons to sufficient level, and eventually the Capitol building was secured. But let's get real here. They would have never made it in the Capitol building without assistance, let's be honest. And for some reason, the Capitol Police did not take this threat seriously. It just didn't. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Capitol Police do not answer to the mayor of the District of Columbia. They do not answer to the Department of Justice. They are an extension of the legislative branch. They answer to Mitch McConnell. So if the Capitol Police were on frolic and detour when the Capitol was under siege, then we have Mitch McConnell to thank for that. And the leadership of the Capitol Police, which has clearly been infiltrated by a bunch of people who identify a great deal more with the Proud Boys than with the Constitution of the United States of America. This is a problem. The other thing that happened today is that those who were prepared to take their ire out in a violent way were egged on, incited, and given leave by members of Congress themselves. Members like Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, members like Brian Mast of Florida and Matt Gaetz, who said, hey, we're going to, in protest, reject the election result and the counting of the Electoral College. And I ask you a very simple question. If you reject the peaceful transition of power, then what's the alternative? Because in this country, there's only two ways to go. You either have a peaceful transition of power or you have violence. So all of those people who were grandstanding on this notion that they were going to reject election results were leaving the door open wide for everyone who thought that violence is the way to get what they want. It was the inevitable outcome of what was being brewing for these many weeks since the election. A refusal to accept an election result means that you're going to use some other means to get your way. Now, I want to dig a little bit more into the basis of rejecting this election result. First thing I want to make clear is not a single member of Congress objected to how they were elected, right? They weren't objecting to the Senate results or the House results. But if that seems kind of weird to you, it ought to, because all of their elections were on the same ballots that they called fraudulent. All of their races were on the same ballots that they claimed were unconstitutional. If vote by mail is unconstitutional for the president, then it's unconstitutional for the House and the Senate and the state house and every damn ballot race. If it's true that a bunch of dead people voted, then those dead people voted for them too. If it's true that a bunch of illegals voted, then they voted for those guys too. But somehow they could decouple in their mind the fact that the ballot that elected them also elected Joe Biden. And that's my problem. My problem is that you know, and I know, and they know that that's irrational. So the bottom line is they never actually believed the things that they said. They said it as a form of loyalty and allegiance to Donald Trump and his minions. That's it. They didn't actually believe any of this. They didn't believe that it was fraudulent. They didn't believe it was unconstitutional. They just said it because they figured in saying it, they would somehow take something away and delegitimize Joe Biden, delegitimize Kamala Harris as the first African-American woman vice president of the United States. That's why they were doing it, just to kind of egg on their people. But I want to make something else clear. They know their people too. They know the guys that hoard weapons. They know the Proud Boys. They know the guys that are sitting around waiting for direction from Donald Trump to wild out. They know that on their word, people are going to act in violent ways. They know this. And they hide behind plausible deniability and say, well, we really didn't think they would go that far. Of course you did. You incited them to do that. You knew they were going to. It's not like we didn't know they were amassing in Washington. They let everybody know. And it's not like they didn't explain that they had an intent to engage in violence. They spread it all over social media. Oh, we're going to take back our country. We're going to use our, we're going to take names and kill people. And, they were all over social media explaining exactly what their intentions were. So now they're going to act surprised that it went off exactly the way that those folks were claiming was going to go down. I think the one thing that the social media posters thought was going to happen was that this swell of people would come in support of them. That didn't happen. And I think the rest of us expected the Capitol Police to hold. Not to open the barriers to them, invite them in, let them take pictures, take selfies. We didn't expect that. So we need to do some very, very serious investigating about what happened there and how we allowed it to happen. I want to be honest and put words to that which a lot of people don't say. When it comes to this era, the police are not on the side of right and good. They're not. Why? Because all of this ties back to Black Lives Matter and the movement for justice and accountability in the policing of communities of color. And in that divide, it was very clear that there were people who stood with the police to give them license to do whatever they wanted to do, and people who wanted to hold them accountable. And so we ought not be shocked when so many members of law enforcement considered these seditionist terrorists their cohort, friend, and support. They treated them like they were buddies because they are. We allowed our police forces to become commingled and coextensive with lawless, seditionist, treasonous, and terrorist activity. And it's going to take a lot of work to pull us back from that abyss. A lot. So even though what happened tonight, I think, is under control at the moment, the cancer has not been treated and we are not yet in remission. We're going to need a lot of work on our policing and investigations as to where our leadership fell apart to understand how we got here. Because trust and believe, it's not like the leadership of police departments are unaware of the proclivities of their officers. They're perfectly aware. They know it. They just don't want to deal with it because it's complicated, because it can undo morale, because they have to deal with the police unions, and they themselves don't want to lose their power. So they just kind of let it be because they didn't think it would get to this point. But they kind of knew what their guys were about. And that's the same thing with the members of Congress. They kind of knew what their guys were about. And now they're going to try to pretend like they didn't. Well, I'm going to say it. They knew. They wanted this to happen. They knew this was going to happen, and they must be held accountable. If you like what you just heard, You can find out so much more and hear so much more on my Patreon channel, patreon.com/Pam Keith FL. That's where you hear the rest of this discussion, and there's lots more to share.